Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys Football, taking a look at the Florida State Seminoles as they roll into the 2023 spring practice window. Again, going to be doing a deeper dive into all these programs in the summer, but taking a look at some of these teams that you're really intrigued with and talking about some questions you have going into spring practice. Of course, before we get into it, I just want to say thank you to you guys, the Seminole fans. You guys have been awesome. And if you guys have been listening to us for a little bit, I was very high on this Florida State team last year. Obviously, kind of a tough stretch of injuries and playing some really good teams like Clemson and Wake Forest. But once that team got healthy, that was a very, very good team. And they are returning almost all of their production heading into 2023 and add a lot of guys, whether it's in the 2023 recruiting class or the transfer portal. Going to be breaking some of that down and more. But again, you guys have been awesome. If you enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Let's get into it. We'll start on the offense side of the ball. We'll start with that quarterback position. Jordan Travis coming back. This is what you see with Mike Norvell is he's really starting to dig into his tenure at Florida State. And guys like Jordan Travis, Jared Verse, Johnny Wilson, all dudes who could have gone to the NFL, decided to come back for one more year. And I think why you saw that is because this Florida State team, you look at the depth chart, you look at the other teams in the ACC and other teams around college football, this Florida State depth chart and this team from a talent standpoint and from a returning production standpoint is one of the best teams in the country. I think that's why a lot of those guys came back for another year. I think Mike Norvell is doing a phenomenal job, and this is going to be a very fun team to watch in 2023. And Jordan Travis is a dude that's gotten better every single year. You knew he was a phenomenal athlete, but what you saw in the last 2 years is some real development from the pocket. And especially last year, he wasn't using his legs that much to win. He was dicing people up from the pocket when he was healthy. And I think the bigger storyline is Jordan Travis is a certified baller. Print the t-shirts for him to be a Heisman Trophy winner because I certainly think he has that juice. But I want to take a look at the weapons around him and how good this Florida State offense can be and how well do they gel as you get into spring practice. Jordan Travis is a certified baller. One of the positions that Florida State really struggled when you go back to 2021 is that wide receiver position. It is a loaded room, and there are a lot of guys that I expect to kind of make a statement. I mean, you start with Johnny Wilson, one of the best wide receivers in 2022. He's coming back, obviously a massive body. And I like how this wide receiver room is kind of built. They have kind of that big X in Johnny Wilson, but you have a guy like Micah Pittman who's really good with the ball in his hands. Keep an eye on Hakeem Williams, a true freshman, but he's not built like a true freshman. Already are enrolled early, doing winter workouts, going to be participating in spring practice. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be playing a lot for Florida State. And then one other guy I want to note, Winston Wright, was in a really bad car accident. I'm sure Florida State fans know this. Coming over from West Virginia, I was extremely excited. In 2022, in the summer, we were saying Florida State needs some more wide receivers. They go out and attack the transfer portal in a big way with Johnny Wilson, Micah Pittman, Winston Wright Jr. Winston Wright Jr. was the guy I was most excited for. Obviously couldn't play with the leg injury from the car accident. He's coming back, and if he can return, and that's something to monitor in spring practices, how good does he look? Because I think he has some serious juice, and you look at that wide receiver room, there are a lot of guys who can contribute at a very, very high level. And then the running backs situation is awesome. I mean, Trayshawn Ward going to Kansas State, that makes sense. I mean, that running backfield is loaded with talent. And Trayshawn Ward's a guy who I don't think a lot of Florida State fans blame him. Walk on to a starter, and then he's going to be the guy at Kansas State. And Florida State's just fine at the running back position. Trey Benson's another dude that might be the best running back in the ACC this year. And then Lawrence Tufali has been a guy I've loved for a very long time. Electric with the ball in his hands. What I want to talk about a little bit more, and this is when you get more into the spring practice and what do you want to see from spring practice, I want to see the additions of the tight end. Kyle Morlock and Jaheim Bell, specifically Jaheim Bell. He's a dude with endless amounts of talent. South Carolina just didn't really know how to use him in 2022, and at one point they're just like, you are so good, we're going to put you in the backfield and just give you handoffs. And if Florida State can figure out a way, and I'm kind of interested to read the reports of practice and how are they using Jaheim Bell? Because he's a dude that's really, really good in space. And I can't wait to see how Florida State and Mike Norvell in that offense dials things up for a guy like Jaheim Bell because he is a big-time playmaker at that tight end spot where they've had some good tight ends in the past. I think Jaheim Bell is the most talented tight end that they will have, and I'm really excited to see what Florida State does with him. He can do so much. You can line him up in the backfield. You can line him up on the slot. You can line him up in the line of scrimmage. I don't know if that's his game, but he can certainly do that. And then the offensive line, you look at this was a good group in terms of their starting five. They did not have a lot of depth. And when you saw guys like Robert Scott go out, guys who were coming in just really weren't ready for the ACC. And when you saw them lose those 3 straight games, I think that was a lot to do with just a lack of depth from the offensive line. That's not a problem anymore. Bringing in Casey Roddick from Colorado, Jeremiah Byers, he's going to be really good. I'm excited to kind of listen to the practice reports and see what they're doing with him, because Robert Scott Jr.'s nails at left tackle. He's quite frankly going to be high on my 2024 NFL draft board. I think Bless Harris on the other side is good, but Jeremiah Byers from the inside is a guy that I'm extremely excited about. I think the moral of the story here is you added some depth here. You added 2 guys that you really trust to come in, and if guys go down, like, they're going to be really, really good players. And then Jeremiah Byers is a dude that I think can play at a all ACC level. Big sting on this offensive side of the ball is you have your veteran quarterback and you continue to surround him with elite talent. And this offense is going to be extremely fun to watch. It's an offense that Mike Norvell's really good at dialing up those explosive plays. I would expect Florida State to see a lot of those plays when you look at guys like Johnny Wilson Jr., who can really stretch the field. You add a guy like Trey Benson and Jaheim Bell. Talented offense. Very excited to see what you can get from those guys. And then you look at the defensive side of the ball, and you start with Jared Verse coming back and going back to why this Florida State team might be special in 2023 is guys like Jared Verse, who would have been a top 10 pick. I was already had him on my draft board for 2023, had him as a top 10 prospect, decides to come back and just, quite frankly, some wild news. He's going to be the best pass rusher in the whole entire country this year. You add a guy like Braden Fisk from the inside, obviously losing Robert Cooper, but Fabian Lovett, Braden Fisk, very excited to see what they can do. And then Gilbert Edmond coming from South Carolina, very, very good and productive player from South Carolina. Derek McClendon, and then Darrell Jackson coming from Miami. You look at that defensive front, it's loaded with depth. I'm excited to see who emerges from this group. Jared Verse, is going to be the alpha dog on the defensive line. But Darrell Jackson, how well does he kind of continue to build his frame and be able to play on the inside? Gilbert Edmond and Braden Fisk, how are they kind of shaken out from a depth chart perspective on the defensive line? So many names to keep an eye on from that defensive line spot. I cannot wait to see who emerges. And it doesn't really matter because a lot of those guys are going to play, and that's a position where you want to have a lot of bodies because you want to put in fresh bodies on that defensive line. This, from a depth standpoint, I don't think we've seen a Florida State team as deep as we see heading into 2023. At that linebacker spot, 2 guys I really like, Kalen DeLoach and Tatum Bethune. Tatum Bethune was a dude that I was extremely excited about coming from UCF last year. I think he played extremely well for Florida State, and that's, quite frankly, been a position where I think Florida State has struggled with. Recruiting athletes at the linebacker position and then developing them. You have 2 guys in Kalen DeLoach and Tatum Bethune who you feel really good about, and then a guy like DJ Lundy who playing pretty much everywhere for Florida State. I really like his game too. Finally seeing some leaders emerge from that linebacker unit, I'm really excited for. And then at that cornerback or the secondary position, you lose a guy like Jamie Robinson, who is phenomenal for you. That hurts. But there's a lot of good players in the secondary. Akeem Dent coming back, I think that's massive. They're going to use him all over the field. But then Fentrell Cypress, 24/7 had him as a top 5 recruit in the country, transfer portal guy in the country at Virginia, was pretty much locked down. That's a massive win for Florida State. When you can have a dude that you really feel comfortable just leaving him on an island, it's massive for a defense. And I think Fentrell Cypress is that guy, but you have some other guys you feel really good about in the secondary, but it'll alleviate a lot of stress when you have a guy like Fentrell Cypress who you can kind of trust on that boundary. This Florida State team on both sides of the ball has a ton of good depth, and you talk about expectations, and again, we'll get into this during the summer and talk a little bit more about specific players that we're expecting to break out and kind of taking a look at the schedule. In the ACC, this is the year Florida State, I think, can win I think they should be the favorites to win the ACC. Clemson has a ton of question marks. Like Kay Klubnik, you feel good about, but this Florida State team, if they play Clemson like they were playing at the end of the season when they were fully healthy, I think I would have picked Florida State to win that game on a neutral site. That's how good I think this Florida State roster is. And the ACC in general this year has a ton of question marks, right? Clemson, how are they going to look without DJU and Kay Klubnik coming in? I think they'll be a good team. But this is probably the worst Clemson team from a talent standpoint we've seen in a little bit. UNC, they have Drake May, but they lose Phil Longo. Wake Forest, no Sam Hartman. NC State's getting a transfer from Devin Leary's leaving. You have some question marks about that. Brendan Armstrong coming in, but that NC State team struggled down the stretch as well. Looking at the ACC, there's not a lot of teams that you feel like is going to push Florida State. And if they can run the table in the ACC, win an ACC title, I don't think it's crazy for a Florida State team to make the college football playoffs. And especially if you get a Heisman season from Jordan Travis and you have him stay healthy, I think one of the big parts is being able to establish a run game without really including Jordan Travis because you want to keep him healthy. He's part of it. Ask him to use his legs when he needs to, but keep him healthy. Because if this team stays healthy, you get a Heisman year from Jordan Travis, which you look at the talent all around Jordan Travis. I think that's certainly a possibility. This Florida State team is poised to win an ACC title, and I think push for a college football playoff spot because the talent and the depth are all there. You have the senior leadership. This is a team to watch. I'm excited to see kind of how these transfers mesh in spring practice, but a very fun team. And again, wanted to close it out, just talk some questions, talk some players, but again, we appreciate the support you guys are showing. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Probably some big recruit news on the Florida State trail as well in 2024. A lot of big-time guys coming on visit, so we'll update you guys on that as well. But again, appreciate the support. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We appreciate you guys for real, and we'll talk to y'all later.